Xi Jinping, a biography, written by Zhong Wen. Chapter 17 The Scourge of the Plague, the Enemy of Mankind. On January 23, 2020, Xi Jinping announced the closure of Wuhan, making the world know that there was a pneumonia outbreak in Wuhan. The pandemic spread rapidly to countries around the world until May 5, 2021. More than 570,000 people had died in the United States and 3.24 million worldwide. But the latest research from the University of Washington indicates that the number of deaths in the United States should be 900,000 and the global death toll is estimated at 7 million. Xi Jinping has caused the biggest pandemic havoc of the century, which is still developing, and the death toll is rising with every passing day. In fact, COVID-19 virus leaked from Wuhan Institute of Virus Research, which was built with French aid in 2016 and completed and began operations in 2018. France knew the great danger of virus research. France signed an agreement with China that 50 French experts should participate in the laboratory for 5 years, but the Chinese Communist Party violated the agreement and did not allow French experts to participate, and the Chinese Communist Party has been operating it secretly. As early as 2013, when Xi Jinping came to power, he took the United States as his enemy and ordered the study of various superlimit warfare methods to defeat the powerful military power of the United States, the so-called overtaking, no matter what crooked methods were used. Among them was biochemical warfare. Biological chemical weapons are both insidious and efficient. It's difficult to detect and defend. This leads to it having the potential to deal with the enemy unknowingly. But biochemical weapons have long been outlawed by the United Nations, and all countries have signed on to recognize them. Therefore, the CCP's research and development had to be conducted very secretly. Also, China lacked advanced biotechnology for virus decomposition and synthesis. In 2015, the Chinese Communist Party negotiated with France to establish a virus laboratory. France carefully signed an agreement with the CCP, which was opened in 2016. The U.S. Embassy in Beijing was very concerned to learn that the Wuhan virus laboratory went into operation in January 2018 and sent experts to Wuhan several times to visit and inspect the laboratory. They found that the laboratory staff was doing research on bat coronaviruses. They were shocked, and their researchers lacked safety training. They did not have tight virus protection measures. So the U.S. experts warned the laboratory supervisor that SARS-like coronaviruses from bats could infect humans. In early December 2019, the medical authorities in Wuhan discovered human-to-human transmission of the pneumonia virus and reported to the central government leaders of Wuhan City and Hubei province the discovery of human-to-human transmission. This was sent. However, according to CCP regulations, provinces and municipalities do not have the authority to release information about the pandemic outside the country. So they have to wait for instructions from the central government. On December 30, 2019, Wuhan ophthalmologist Li Wenliang exchanged information to a friend in an online WeChat message, suggesting that a SARS-like virus infection had been detected, and asked the friend to pay attention to it. Li Wenliang's information about the virus spread, and he was admonished and disciplined by the Wuhan city authorities for violating the rule that he could not privately disclose the virus infection. Li Wenliang insisted on continuing to track the development of the virus infection, and so he himself got infected by the virus, showing symptoms of pneumonia on January 10. He was diagnosed with pneumonia due to the new coronavirus on January 31, and died on February 7 at the age of 34, posthumously acknowledged as the first whistleblower and the first victim. Dr. Yan Limeng, a virus expert from the School of Public Health of the University of Hong Kong, fled to the United States on April 28, 2020 to expose the origin of the Wuhan virus. She confessed that she had been informed by her friends at the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention on December 31, 2019, that human-to-human transmission of SARS-like virus had been detected. She was in possession of a large amount of information about the virus. On January 1, 2020, the Hubei Provincial Health Commission issued a telephone notice: Wuhan, all new crown pneumonia virus samples must be destroyed, no further testing to be done. Obviously, this was an attempt to conceal the source of the virus. On January 3, 2020, Professor Yongzhen Zhang of the Shanghai Public Health Center received a virus sample that detected a novel SARS coronavirus. He recommended disease control and pandemic prevention measures which went without any response. On January 3, 2020, the National Health Commission issued another notice that no unauthorized information about biological samples should be provided to outside parties. On January 9, 2020, the United Nations World Health Organization, based on the data provided by the Chinese government, announced that the virus would not spread easily from person to person, and the head of the WHO was considered to be under major suspicion of being bribed by the CCP for stuffing money. He executed the CCP, creating a false impression to the outside world. On January 12, 2020, the CCP shut down the Shanghai P3 virus laboratory and destroyed the virus samples to cover up the source of the virus. On January 14, 2020, the National Health Commission of the Communist Party of China held a provincial video conference and announced that Thailand had a confirmed diagnosis of Wuhan pneumonia virus, indicating that the virus had crossed out the country's border. However, WHO actually ignored it and did not propose any precautionary measures. On January 23, 2020, Xi Jinping suddenly announced the closure of Wuhan, a few days before Xi Jinping was on a visit abroad and the CCP Standing Committee had no authority to make any disposition. When Xi Jinping returned to China, he made the major decision. At that time, it was announced that there were 375 confirmed cases and 17 deaths in Wuhan. If it was indeed such a small number, and so it was not worth closing the city of Wuhan, which has 12 million people. In fact, the severity of the pandemic was far greater than the official figures announced, with millions of people entering and leaving Wuhan before the closure. Millions more fled Wuhan after the closure, leaving the country and scattering all over the world. On January 31, 2020, the U.S. Customs announced closure for Chinese travelers, but 430,000 people had already entered the U.S. before that, and the rest had flown to European countries. In late January 2020, the CCP announced that Major General Chen Wei, the chief biological weapons defense expert, would take over the Wuhan P4 Virus Institute to do aftercare and cleanse the evidence. Xi Jinping used the army to seal off Wuhan, treating patients as enemies. Taiwan's Dongsan TV, regardless of safety, went into the patient concentration camps, patient homes and funeral homes. They interviewed people and took photos of real situations. It was exposed that Xi Jinping has resorted to various barbaric methods of sealing, arresting, clearing, isolating, and burning. Patients were arrested, beaten, dragged, escaped over the fence, beaten with sticks, and ran away when they did not want to go to the isolation camp to die, with the police officers chasing after them. The CCP is fighting a people's war, with patients as the target. Such horrific scenes were filmed by Taiwan TV. In a TV interview on February 5, 2020, it was revealed that Wuhan funeral parlors had handled the cremation of more than 10,100 people, with 1/3 of the bodies coming from hospitals and 2/3 directly from the families of the deceased. This caused an increased workload of funeral parlors several times. The staff could hardly sleep just 4 hours a day and had to hire temporary workers to handle the job. There is more information to reveal the Wuhan virus from the secret research of the virus laboratory. February 15, 2020, Guangzhou. The South China University of Technology Professor Xiao Buotao has pointed out in a paper, Wuhan virus experiments on the research of captured animal mismanagement, is the source of pneumonia virus. Professor Xiao pointed out that, Wuhan laboratory went to Hubei, Zhejiang and Yunnan respectively to capture 600 bats back for research. There was a staff member who was bitten by a bat and got stained with blood, and someone who was shot with urine by a bat needed to be isolated for 14 days. The Daily Mail has reported on April 11, 2020 that documents obtained show that the Wuhan Institute of Virus Research captured a large number of bats from Yunnan province for coronavirus experiments. Some researchers were infected after spraying blood containing the virus, which then spread. The so-called source of the virus announced by the CCP is the Wuhan South China seafood market, which is a front. Even if there are wild animals with the virus in the seafood market, Its source is the animals studied by the Wuhan virus laboratory, and the laboratory used to take out the experimented animals to sell in the market for economic benefits. How many people have died from coronary pneumonia virus in mainland China so far? The official national statistic is 4,858. Obviously an artificial figure from the CCP, circulated on the internet on the mainland. On March 30, 2020, Wang Huning asked the Hubei Provincial Party Committee, how many people have died? Hubei replied it was more than 720,000 people. Xi Jinping has created, concealed and spread the pneumonia virus, causing a huge disaster in various countries. The death toll in India is rising and may reach 1 million. The pandemic is still developing and countries are still busy vaccinating, hoping to control the pandemic in the short term, and are not able to hold the CCP accountable. Once the pandemic eases down, countries will join hands to hold the CCP accountable and may take Xi Jinping to the international court. Chinese domestic public opinion has realized the seriousness of the problem. Xi Jinping is facing not only the 8-nation alliance, but the 80-nation alliance, which is much bigger than the international crisis faced by the Qing dynasty. On April 30, 2021, on the front page of the French newspaper Le Figaro published an open letter signed by more than 20 international scientists calling for a deeper investigation into the origin of the new coronavirus and further investigation of the virus that leaked from the Wuhan virus laboratory. The world has reason to wonder why the CCP had to travel thousands of miles to capture thousands of bats with infectious viruses and return to Wuhan to decompose and synthesize them to create new viruses. Although the Chinese Communist Party deliberately concealed and destroyed the evidence, a large amount of scattered information has leaked out. The CCP cannot remove it one by one. Pudding would be. Xi Jinping cannot escape the blame. As early as August 14, 2015, the Chinese Communist Military Medical Press published an internal textbook, Unnatural Origins of SARS and Genetic Weapons of the New Human-to-Human Virus, revealing that the CCP had weaponized the SARS coronavirus 5 years ago and predicted that World War III would be biological warfare. The book was published internally by the military and remained unnoticed by the outside world for several years. In 2021 it was brought forth by the Australian media and further the Australian and US intelligence has verified the existence of the book. On May 25, 2021, U.S. President Joe Biden ordered his subordinates to deliver a report on the origin of the Wuhan virus within 90 days. On May 26, Biden ordered 17 national laboratories to cooperate with the investigation because they have supercomputers that can organize and analyze the vast amount of information and dynamics collected about the virus. Even if the Chinese Communist Party hides the truth, they can sort out the spider traces and find the original face. Former Secretary Pompeo said in an interview with reporters on May 29, "I'm sure the lab worked with the military on classified programs that started at least in 2017 and they tried to make the virus more infectious and more deadly. Wuhan laboratory is still operating, which may cause the virus to leak, must be clarified to avoid repeating the same mistake." The Chinese public online comments, "The crime of the public enemy of mankind, the crime is too big even with 1 billion yuan to buy perjury but also useless. Track the truth in order to eliminate the plague, prevent the plague again, there is no room for compromise."